Hello and welcome to Dialogues Q&A. To tell our viewers, in Dialogues Q&A, we invite queries from our members and get an expert in the house to answer them for you. And the expert in the house today is Latika Pai. Welcome, Latika. And I'll dive straight into the questions. What can attract impact investors in the rural health tech startup that has socially impactful outcomes? What should be their startup pitch when they're going out for funding?
See, the fact that you're saying it's rural healthcare,
Health tech startup.
immediately you know that you immediately know that you are going to create impact. I think
Mhm.
what's important is a to identify what is your differentiating factor. There are several rural tech, health tech startups out there. Lots doing telemedicine, etc. And what is your differentiating factor in terms of that, when you go out to pitch? I think that's most important, is doing your homework on what is out there. It could be that you're in a completely different market, which most are not going into, and also what is the technology that you're planning to use, and that is going to be a very important aspect of when the impact investor looks at it. Like I said earlier, the fact that you are, it's rural and it's healthcare, the impact question is already given, right? So the pitch should really focus on what the startup plans to do, and sell that to the investor. I think most impact investors are actually all impact investors, right? When they call themselves impact investors, they are clear on two things. One is that it is going to improve, typically below the poverty line folks, and really do something to change lives. Secondly, they also understand that the returns, from an impact investment are probably going to be smaller and take a much longer time, for them to get those returns. So I think that's something that all impact invest all of those who call themselves impact investors understand.
And the next question, Latika, is the difference between angel funding and VC funding. What is the difference in amount that you can ask the angel versus a VC? When should a startup approach angel funding and when should they approach for VC funding? Criteria that angels consider in a startup before investing vis-a-vis a criteria or metrics that a VC considers in a startup before investing. This is for a startup in the health food segment asking which mode of funding should they consider.
So, today there are VCs who are micro VCs, right? Who are writing small checks, like, how angels typically did in the past. So, angels, again, it comes back to the fact, typically are the ones personally, or maybe one personally, and then they bring others to the table, right? So, and the amounts vary. There are some angels who write a check only, they all come together and say, okay, we'll write a check for 5 lakhs each, and put that amount in. There are angels who are willing to put in, a crore in. So that is something, again, depending on the angel and the angel knowing you as the startup founder, right? And going to a VC, like I mentioned, there are VCs who write checks which are largest, checks of 500K plus. But there are now today, 100x VC, for example, started with writing 25 lakh checks, but today they are upping that to a crore and 25. So there are several out there who are writing smaller checks, and I think that's something that you want to consider. My advice would be identifying those smaller, micro VCs who are writing smaller checks, because they also give you a lot more in terms of support. And then but if you do have angels who are waiting to write you a check, then take that, right? So you can go both ways. As far as the health food segment, again, what is your differentiating factor? For example, a couple of years ago, yoga bars, etc., all the protein foods, that protein bars, healthy food, all of that, smoothies, they all were very, very popular, right? A couple of years ago. Making ice creams which are which use sugar, so that they're trying to make sugar-free ice creams and they're building it up, right? So today, what I'm noticing is angels will fund your healthy food if they believe in that particular sector and they believe in you, and but they are looking at the fact that they want to know what your track record is in terms of what is your monthly sales, how are you doing customer acquisition, is it all online, is it do you place your product in various stores, have you created those partnerships, so all of this criteria is considered. And again, are you in a category that's already crowded? Are you in a category that is different, right? So that's what I would say.
Okay, thanks. Moving on to the next question, which is again a two-part question. What is the best instrument to raise funds for the initial seed round? And should we wait for the strategic investor, or should we accept funds from non-strategic investors as well?
Again, depends on where you are in terms of your journey. Are you able to build your product and acquire customers without funding? If that's the case, then of course I would say wait for your strategic investor. But if you need the money in terms of really building the product and getting it to product market fit, then raise it from non-strategic investors. Again, angels or smaller funds. So again, it depends on the investors. They will decide whether they're willing to accept a convertible note, which basically means that you don't set the valuation when the money comes in. The valuation is set when an institutional investor comes in, or a certain period of time, right? Typically it's about it could be anywhere between 12 and 24 months, where it says, okay, we didn't raise any money from institutional investors, so how can we actually take this forward in terms of valuation, right? If you have raised money through a convertible note. So back to the fact that ideally you probably want a convertible note so that your valuation is not necessarily boxed in early on. I've known founders who had to took a say about 1 crore at a 5 crore valuation right up front at when it was an ideation early stage, versus giving them a convertible note, and they regretted it because maybe in 12 to 24 months they had a product, and as a result they could have got a valuation of 25 crores. So it depends. There are some angel investors, some early stage funds are very clear, this is the valuation, take it or leave it. Some of them are willing to go with a convertible note, but I would recommend a convertible note if they can swing it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Latika. Thank you for answering these queries of our members. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, and it's great being here, and happy to help anytime you need support.